66 higher on the Nifty, 10,670 is where we are at. S. Ramesh is Managing Director and CEO of Kotak Investment Banking. He's joining us right now from the Kotak conference. Mr. Ramesh, thank you for your time. Why is the primary market in coma ICU, sir? We've got the index which is not very far from record highs.
So I think after the high of 2017 and I think a reasonably robust first half calendar 18, I think primary markets have been in a hiatus, as you know, from the second half of 18, and it is sort of spilled over now. I can think of 3 or 4 factors why we are in this situation. Number one, I think the off season for primary markets started on the back of a combination of some internal and external factors. If you recall, couple of quarters back, it started on the back of crude oil going up. Then one thing led to another. Then we had a liquidity crisis, some circumspection on the NBFC sector. Then there was the whole global trade war. So situations of that kind, one thing led to another, which have made investors, particularly the global investors, a little nervous about the volatility. The second situation is that consequently what has happened is that the difference between the fair value of a company in the eyes of maybe a corporate versus where investors are willing to price risks, I think that bid-ask has sort of widened. And it's not in a zone where it's easy to do primary market offerings. So I think we continue to be in the hiatus. Everybody is now really putting their lens on the forthcoming elections. So I think we will continue in a bit of this kind of zone for some time.
Mr. Ramesh, well, while you're speaking, we have some statements coming in from the PNB chairman about selling stake in PNB MetLife. That's something that they'll consider next year, and PNB Housing as well. That's been on the block in any case. But do you think that maybe this could be a trend that we could probably see heighten in this year from the PSU banking stable, where they're going to sell off their non-core assets in order to capitalize themselves, protect themselves from PCA? And do you think that there's appetite?
So maybe I'll just first start a little generally to say that if you look at the pipeline backlog that we have and the other investment banks have on the street, the pipeline is robust. It's spread across the FIG sector. It's spread across real estate, some infra and stuff like that. So there is a decent pipeline. But I think if I have to be very candid, we are not in the short term in a situation to access market deals and get them done where buyers and sellers can meet a common price. So it's a little bit of a challenging time. The bright side, if I may just say, out of my experience of being in the markets for a long time, generally hiatuses in primary markets don't last very long. So I think one is hopeful that post the elections and on the back of corporate recovery, we will start to see clearance of the backlog of the pipeline. And if I may just make a statement on that, I think the trend that we expect is that the FIG sector, consumer, real estate, some of these issuances may see the light of the day first. And if the secondary markets and the investor appetite continues to be robust, we will see the other IPOs which are currently pending to also sort of hit the market. The second thing is that investors are just now, as you all know, in a risk-off zone. So we'll have to wait and see how they will look at the small cap and the mid cap new offerings. I think they may not be first off the block. So that's the general trend. We also expect the first REIT listing to happen in India. And I think after a strong QIP market in 2017, maybe after 2 or 3 years, so I expect 2020 to be a time when a lot of QIP issuances, particularly from the FIG sector, is likely to hit the market.
Mr. Ramesh, which other 2 or 3 big deals which you expect will be first off the block? Deals, I mean IPOs.
So that's what I mentioned, that so first on a separate issue, we are seeing interest from certain zone of investors and issuers on the REIT market. So we expect that momentum to pick up. If the first 2, 3 deals happen well, investors are in the money, corporates are broadly happy, I think that's a good thing to have from an Indian context. In the context of new offerings, I expect FIG sector to continue to get its fair share, followed by maybe the consumer sector, and select offerings from the real estate sector will also likely hit the market. On the consumer side, I don't mean the consumer traditional FMCG sector, but anything which is broadly consumer and consumption is where I think we are seeing appetite and interest.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ramesh, we've completely run out of time, but a lot more questions which we'll save for next time. Thank you very much for joining in and speaking with us.